Thank you very much. I had a question about Solom's piece, and if the overall conclusion was that it's deeply ambiguous. How did he differ from your interpretation?
You have to ask Larry, since Larry's more familiar with the article.
Not this Larry Solom.
Yeah, you have to ask Larry about Larry's article.
And in that case, was it too thick? Was it too thin? I'm just trying to grapple with that idea.
I think it may be along a different axis altogether. I mean, he has the notion, which I think may make sense, that there are certain indeterminate questions in the Constitution. I mean, for example, reading the Constitution literally thick or thin, it would make the vice president preside over his own impeachment trial in the Senate. That can't be. So not only as a matter of constitutional silence is it indeterminate, it seems to me that Congress filling in gaps is a different thing from Congress simply pulling a rabbit out of the hat. I think it is an indeterminate question. What should happen, what would be permissible if the Vice President of the United States were impeached by the House, at which point the Chief Justice of the United States is not authorized to sit, but rather the President of the Senate, namely the Vice President, as presiding judge at the trial.
Let me see if I can explain it, get to what your question is about. So it's possible that a constitutional term could be vague. That is, we don't know how far it extends. And it's also possible it could be ambiguous. That is, we don't even know what concept we're pointing at. So if Larry Solom concluded it was irreducibly ambiguous, that would mean that there was no fixed original public meaning, except within some boundary. And then the question is, what are we going to do? And then ordinarily what we would do at that point is engage in constitutional construction. We would use the various modalities of constitutional argument, the ones that you know how to do, all lawyers know how to do, and we would try to come up with the most satisfying solution to the problem. That's what we would do in a case of irreducible ambiguity. But if it's but vagueness is a slightly different problem.
But in that circumstance, then would the default rule with respect to natural-born citizens would be to exclude someone from
No,
the ballot?
not necessarily,
Just,
no.
Oh, there would be no sort of set principle.
I think the most important takeaway has nothing to do with Ted Cruz. It has to do with the fact that at least the two of us agree with almost everything except the last line or the last syllable of recorded time. That is, it seems to me that what you really need is a very thick originalist to make the other argument, saying that there's no way that he's eligible. Or take somebody like Einar Elhage, who's quite agnostic about methods of interpretation, but you can find his piece about this online, and he says there's just nothing that counts as interpretation of any stripe that would make him eligible. But again, I come back to my own bottom line. If the views are that scattered among people who've thought hard about it and from a kind of nonpartisan perspective, then at least can't we agree that it's not well settled?
Professor Balkin, Professor Tribe, thank you both very much.
That was good. It was very fun.
Great fun.